Welcome back, everybody. This is the first part of our Bad Batch series review. So, similar to our Ahsoka reaction videos, we're excited to talk about Bad Batch season three, the final season, with you guys, and we'll go episode by episode and just kind of explore some stuff. Also, we haven't talked to each other. We're trying out something new here. We haven't talked to each other before recording this, so it'll be um, first reaction from all of us. So we can just dive right into episode one. And right off the bat, we started off kind of like right after season two left off. And in a lot of the trailers and promotionals, like I had seen that it was like Omega looked older and all these things, right? And so she kind of was keeping track of like the days on the wall, right? She had scratched in the numbers, and I was like,
Bruh.
okay, cool. Couple days have gone by, right? At first, I was like counting them, right? At first, there was like 21 days had gone by, and I was like, okay, like that's not like too long. But then I don't know if you guys noticed like the smooth transition to it's like
Yeah.
there's like this small line of numbers, and then it was like boom, like she's been there for like almost like 6 months at the time, which was crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because
Bro, I was
I mean,
shook.
yeah, right. You see Hunter in the end of season two, and he's like, no matter what, like our mission is to get Omega back, and like we're not gonna rest until we do that. And like, boom, 6 months has gone by. Like that was pretty crazy time jump for me.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like he says we're gonna stop at nothing to go get her, and Wrecker, like it seems like, has become the voice of reason. And
yeah,
he's like, "Remember last time you went in without backup?" And like that is like a huge maturity change, between
yeah,
what he has been and then now Tech's gone, and he's like almost I don't know, he's changed. Like they both have changed like crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's cool too because you see it's their numbers were slowly dwindling, right? We had Crosshair leave at the very beginning, and then we had Echo leave, and then Tech passing away, and then now it's just them two, right? Omega gets captured, and now it's just Wrecker and Hunter, two of the people that you didn't think like, oh, if these were gonna be like, I wouldn't put them as duos. And it's cool to see kind of like the difference between the dialogue that you with Hunter, like that Hunter has with the rest of the Bad Batch, that he does with Wrecker. And like you said, it's almost like a maturity level thing where now he's like cracking jokes, and it's almost like Hunter just kind of like, yeah, like whatever. But he's been kind of engaging with some banter with him as well. And so, yeah, I thought that was super interesting to kind of see them together, like all alone, kind of trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
yeah, yeah. No, that was definitely crazy, and I think I mean, moving forward with the episode, right? Like post time jump, because like a big thing that kind of surprised me was that I thought that we were going to get more of the Bad Batch, but the whole first episode, we only get Omega and Crosshair. Like we don't see Hunter, we don't see Wrecker, right? Obviously, that comes in episode two and episode three as we go along. But I thought that it was a good like if you would have asked me 2 seasons ago if that was a good idea, I would have been like, absolutely not. Like, do not give me just an Omega episode. But for some reason, like as far as the storyline went, I thought it was really well set up, and it gave a lot of like background and build up to the story because we got to see Emery. Emery's the other female clone, right? We got
Yeah.
to see Nala Se. We got to see Crosshair a little bit more, and we got to see Hemlock's facility, which I think gave more weight and kind of more backstory to what they're doing there. Um, and again, they still leave it open for some mystery, and some of those mysteries are a little bit solved as you go into episode two and three. But I felt like it was kind of a necessary episode for Omega and kind of for the overall setting up of the show at this point. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
one
I'd
thing.
love to get you guys' take on kind of your thoughts regarding only an Omega kind of centered episode. If you liked that, if you didn't like that, and
Yeah, so I just want to jump in kind of real quick. Jason's always been kind of the music guy, kind of like notice the music
The
in
music was fire.
the
It was
music in this
fire.
first episode was awesome. It was like I don't know, it was like eerie, like not really eerie, but it was like slower, but kind of like like techno-ish. And it's like kind of had this like, but it fit like the laboratory vibes. And I was like, that was the first thing that I noticed. And I was like, I'm not like, I wouldn't really notice that. But I honestly really enjoyed it because I think it fit the Omega vibe, right? It fit like her style of, I guess, with her personality and everything. She's kind of having in this tough spot where she is just trying to figure out how to, navigate kind of this daily routine that she has been for like these, 6 months that you mentioned. But the music that went along with it, I think it added to it. It added very much. And that honestly to me, I'm in the same boat, Jake, where I was like, no, I'm not a fan of just strictly like Omega content. But I honestly had no problem with this episode with that because of the elements that they put into it.
If you've seen seasons 1 and 2 of Bad Batch, this episode alone changed your entire perspective of who Omega is. 100%.
Yeah.
I rewatched season 1 and 2 recently, and I've liked Omega more every single episode that I've watched it on a rewatch. But yeah, I'm with you, Jake. That first watch through, brutal. With I just didn't love Omega. The thought of her having her own arc kind of was like, wait, isn't she the arc? Isn't she already the main character of every single story episode? But oh yeah, this episode was crazy. I mean, you brought it up. The facility, you can see all the clones everywhere. I mean, nothing is getting through this facility, right? That was the vibe. Nothing goes on that Hemlock doesn't know about. There's Delta Squad everywhere. And yeah, the music. If Kevin Kiner pulls those songs out of the album again, bro, that's such a rip. That is
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
Yeah. No, great call out. I agree. The music definitely, I mean, kind of doesn't miss. Hopefully he can bring it to Spotify and Apple Music and do it justice, right? But that music was on point. So I think like one other thing that I thought about as I went through the episode, and obviously, these are plots that kind of come together in episode 2 and episode 3, and we can talk about more in those reviews. But I think it was interesting, again, setting the stage with Omega. I'd love to hear kind of like what you guys' thoughts were like, because when I was first watching episode 1, I started noticing one, Emery seems like she's closer to Omega, right? Like you can see that there's kind of a little bit more understanding there, maybe a little bit more empathy towards Omega. And as well, you see the very mothering, protective side of Nala Se to Omega. So in my mind, I was kind of thinking, Crosshair's kind of checked out. Crosshair doesn't really want anything to do with Omega. Omega's doing good due diligence and checking in on Crosshair, right? Going down and talking to him and stuff. But
dog.
as I was thinking about like the show moving forward, and it's like, okay, if Omega's gonna escape or if she's gonna break out, like who are her potential allies here? And are we gonna see a character change throughout the season with Emery or maybe Nala Se, where it's like, okay, I value Omega's freedom over my life or my security within the Empire. Um, and so yeah, I'd love to get you guys' take on that and kind of your first reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because you see kind of like almost that she is kind of like an older, mature Omega who's kind of had to kind of go through, she has been kind of with the Empire the entire time, right? But you kind of see like this is probably who, if Omega was stayed with the Empire, this is who she's going to become. And Omega in these like in basically in the entire episode, she's deciding like, no, I don't want to be this. I don't want to be this person. I want to go back to my family. I want to go back to my brothers. And so you kind of see if like, okay, maybe you see the path that she could take to become like Emery and be an Imperial like scientist, or she could take the other path and be Omega from the Bad Batch. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting dichotomy between the two.
Yeah, I this first episode has Rebels season 4 written all over it, and I was so happy that she kept going back to Crosshair because obviously he wanted nothing to do with her, but she just start just talking to him. She just starts talking to him, and whether he responds in a positive way or not, I thought that was so awesome because she is still, even though she's been there for 6 months or so, she's able to stay positive when the Crosshair is like truly broken. And he says to her, he says, "I belong in here," and she says, like, "None of us belong in here," and in reference to the clones, right? Because her
Yeah.
whole job is to be doing blood samples for clones. And so it's cool for her to like ask all these questions to Emery and Nalase, and then kind of reciprocate her thought process to Crosshair, and it's almost like he's like her buddy, even though he doesn't see it that way. Um, and
Hmm.
and so I love that. I love that she's trying for that relationship, because she tried through season one, she tried through season two, and now he doesn't have a choice, right? He's stuck in that
Yeah.
cell, and so he has to deal with it whether he likes it or not. And I feel like only good things can come from it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, one thing
Yeah,
too,
definitely.
he at the very end of season one, we see that he had the chance to just let Omega die, right? Let her drown, trying to save AZ, but instead he saved her. So at some point in his like, in his heart, he has a connection with Omega, and I was against the like Omega connecting with Tech sort of thing because I just didn't like that episode. Um, but this is actually taking it to like a whole other level. Like this is a lot more meaningful than just them kind of having this weird little banter and Tech kind of showing his emotions in a sense when he hasn't the entire show. That was my thing. Is like, okay, the one moment that you decide to show your emotions is the one time you're stuck in a hole in season two. It's like you couldn't have done that the entire time. But this time we kind of see like Crosshair has kind of always been hiding behind his emotions, but now he's having kind of this reality check, knowing that the Empire has totally destroyed him, and he needs to find a way to keep going, or he's not going to survive.
Yeah. And I think kind of just overall looking at this episode as a whole, and again, getting into it in the other episodes, it's kind of sad to see the state of the clones, right? These clones that are in these facilities, like these are the soldiers that have protected the Republic, and this is how you repay them, right? Like they're just stuck in a lab being like tested on, right? And so, I mean, I agree with you guys both. I think it was awesome that Omega, had that moment with Crosshair where she's like, it's not just how like I'm supposed to be treated, how you're supposed to be treated. Like none of the clones should be treated this way. And again, just kind of, he's forced to listen to her, right? And that definitely brings the two of them closer together. I think the final point that was a big reveal, and again, it wasn't necessarily a reveal, but the final point of this episode that I think stood out the most to me was they kind of name drop this blood testing that they're doing, right? And they're trying to find something called the M count. And as a prequel fan, right, and both of you are prequel fans as well. Thinking about M count in the sense of like midichlorians, or what could this M count be, right? When we're thinking maybe they have Nala Se brought in on the cloning and stuff. My brain immediately went, okay, M count, midichlorian count. They're trying to figure out how to clone the Force, or at least the aptitude for the Force. That's like the way that I think about it, right? But I would love to hear you guys' take, or if you guys have other thoughts about that in general.
We'll talk about it more in episode three, but I love that in the first episode. That's an Omega arc. That is the conversation of, because I mean it's a branch of politics to a degree. Of it's like it's a political thing, and so I think starting off strong with like a super high level political agenda, that's super under the radar. I thought that was awesome. So
Yeah, and I mean it connects what I've said multiple times before, which is I love the Force, I love the Jedi, I love that aspect of Star Wars, and that was what got me into Star Wars, right? And the fact that they're now pulling it into kind of Bad Batch in a subtle way, but still like connecting it, right? Because that's all I mean, kind of picking up from context clues. That's what we believe. That's why the Emperor wants the cloning to be done, is so that he can, he says for the future of the Empire, and so he is doing that so he can either inherit another being that's also force sensitive, that he could use the force to have force abilities, or create an army of like dark Sith like clones and stuff. And so I either way, the M count part was actually really, really cool, and I'm glad that they added that in.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I think that's kind of everything that I pulled from the episode. So obviously, I had some cool cameos. We had Scorch uh, from the OG Republic Commandos, which was fun to see him again. But besides that, yeah, I mean, a great first episode. Again, shocked that I liked an Omega standalone episode so much. I mean, it was sad that we didn't see the batch, but I thought it was a great episode one, and stoked to talk about episode two and episode three and see the rest of the show.
Okay, well,
Uh,
I said 7.5 out of 10, which it's pretty high. I don't know. I'm trying to. I can't give everything a 10, but like it was really good. So 7.5, 8, somewhere around there. Great episode.
Agreed. I think I would do an 8 for that one because it was a solid start. It was really good. I'm kind of in your same boat where I'm like, I'm excited to see if we're gonna get some 10 episodes. I totally believe we are. So this is a great intro. It's making me excited to see kind of like the future of this because I am actually really enjoying like Omega and Hemlock and this whole part on the planet. So I'm excited to see it. So yeah, 8.
Nice. I think I would actually probably go a little bit lower than you guys. I'd probably go like 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Again, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was great. It's tough for me to go week by week. And again, I might bring that rating up or down based on how the rest of the series goes. But I thought it was intriguing. Was there a lot of action? No, but I thought it definitely set up the plot a lot. When I go back and rewatch it, definitely. But I don't know if I'm ready to say this was like, top tier content, right? So
Right.
a little more doubting, probably around the 7, maybe lower 6.5 range for me. So all right, well, we'll go ahead and jump into episode 2 then next time.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you've just watched the first episode of our Bad Batch reactions for this new season. Super great opener, kind of great. We got Omega and Crosshair coming in, kind of focusing on them. But then second episode opens up with our boys, right? Wrecker and Hunter. And well, first it opens up with the Rand syndicate, which I thought was super interesting because we get to see kind of more crime syndicate stuff, which I'm actually a huge fan of because we know who's the head at this point, who's that like the head of the syndicate order, right? We know it's our boy Darth Maul, but I wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts though. We kind of mentioned it in episode 1 where it's taking so long for Wrecker and Hunter to get Omega. But in this episode, it kind of explains that they've been working as mercenaries for the time being, or at least that's how they're introduced in the Durand court. And so I wanted to get your guys' take. What do you think, like, what's going on with our boys? They're working as mercenaries. Why do you think it's taking them so long to fish out Omega and Crosshair?
Well, the first thing is that they have no idea where they are, right? That's like their whole point of helping the Durand is they need the intel of where Hemlock's base is. And so they happen to stumble upon the opportunity with the son of Issa Durand and get his horn back from the Pikes or whatever. And I think they just have been working for the last X amount of months to figure out, the next move.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you watch the episode, you really realize that Hemlock's base and his whereabouts and what he's doing is all kept like way under lock and key, right? And as you go through the episode, don't want to jump the gun too much, but as you get into it, you see that every time like his base or his position's been compromised, like they make sure to take out any evidence that it's existed. They move it to another location where it's secure. So again, this is like one of the Empire's like best kept secrets. They're not letting this out where they're at.
Hey, we can't gloss over this. Season 1, they are threatened by the Pikes. That's the whole reason they even know who the Durands are, right? Season 3, they say, where the Pikes at, we're going to come and take you hostage and throw you into another crime syndicate's prison cells. Like, they literally flip from, hey, let's stay out of the crime syndicate to, hey,
Right.
we're coming for you, get out of the way, kind of thing. Crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right. And kind of what I honestly really enjoyed that too, because we see they basically have no regards for this Pike member. They literally just gave him to him, and then she just takes him out, right? Like Issa Duran just kills him, and you're like, and you don't see like any remorse on Wrecker or Hunter. They're on a mission. They're like, we're gonna stop at nothing, and we're gonna bulldoze anyone who needs like we need to get through it, right? And so we see Roland kind of talk to them, and kind of you see like Roland in a little bit more of a like positive relationship with them now, right? After everything that they've gone through, you see kind of him respecting them, and I thought that was super interesting to see. They might have him kind of coming in a little bit more later. Um, but we get the coordinates, right? They kind of shifting scenes here. They get the coordinates to this planet where they believe that's where Omega's being held, right? So they land on the planet, and then they
Wait, pause. I accidentally said this in the first episode, but it actually happened in the second episode, where Wrecker says that Rex and Echo can join us in 2 rotations, and Hunter says we don't have time for that, and Wrecker's like, well, hey, like remember what happened last time that we went in without backup? Yeah, Tech died, and he's like, who cares? We're going. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit more in episode 1, so we don't really need to go through it. But yeah, like Wrecker is the voice of reason at this point. Hunter is kind of just putting his head down and trying to like brute force his way into to finding Omega. And so we have them kind of land. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, one point about that specific scene where they're talking to each other as well, like a subtle detail is they have on the like in the ship, they have Tech's like broken glasses there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that, but like that actually carries so much more weight when you think about it because Tech shot the wire, he fell into the pit and died. Everything blew up, right? There's all the wreckage everywhere. Like the batch has gone back. They know that he's not there, right? We see that in season 2, right? But like Tech's gone. And so again, it's like, okay, Wrecker's now the voice of reason. Hunter's like, we got to get our girl back no matter what. But it's like, okay, now we have this foreshadowing or kind of this like looking back on the past of like, yeah, last time we did this, we lost Tech, and Echo's gone right now, Crosshair's gone, Omega's gone. Like, who's next, So just like a lot of emotions, a lot of weight behind that. So
what and Wrecker's the voice of reason. Hunter's become the guy that's studying the data pad, or that the side that Tech would always do, the devising of the scheming that Hunter obviously had played a part in as the leader of Bad Batch, but like someone had to fill Tech's role, and I feel like they both did it combined. Crosshair was such an external piece that like Tech was a core piece, like as much as like that sounds bad about Crosshair, but like it is true. He's a great shot. Like that is a great piece for Dave Filoni to play with and make him the bad guy. But like you need the core 3 plus Echo's a 4th core. He's more of a core than Crosshair because of the droid aspect, right? Then like them together, like losing Tech, like I mean they've had to make up for Echo too with Gonki, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
we got our boy Gonkroid in there, bro.
Yeah, we got Gonky
well,
in this
and
episode.
While we're on the topic, sorry, like a lot happened in that scene, right? In such a short amount of time. But like my biggest thought as I was watching that scene is I cannot see Echo finishing the show being alive. And it's a bold take in episode 2. I get that. But here's the deal. Echo feels so passionately about helping out the Republic, about working with Rex to get all this stuff done. Where is Echo in Star Wars Rebels, right? When Rex disappears and leaves, Echo either would be with Rex or he's not with Rex because he's gone. Like I'm calling it here, episode 2. I don't think Echo's making it to the end of the show. I think he's going to sacrifice himself in some way, right? But like judging by that scene alone, the fact that Echo's not even with them, looking for Omega at this point, he's off helping the clones in this greater thing with Rex right now. I just don't see a finale where Echo is still alive, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I in the same boat with you. I think we're going to see a lot of people go because, and in Rebels we only see Rex, Gregor, and Wolf And so it's like, how do we go from all of these clones to just these core three? Like, and not only are they just these three, they're hiding on a distant planet, right? They're not engaging in any fighting. They're not engaging in rebellion. They're hiding. And so I think that's going to be interesting, and I'm excited to see if that question's answered.
Mhm.
A little tidbit when they kind of get back on when they get on the planet, right? And Wrecker is walking through the forest, and he just goes, "Oh, it smells like rotten Yotaz." I thought that was super funny because I'm like, oh, as a Jedi Fallen Order fan, we know that a Yotaz is like was introduced in that game, and apparently they're on home their homeworld is Zepho. Like, there's no other known homeworlds for it. So I don't know if maybe I'm shooting in the dark there, but who knows? Maybe Bad Batch went to Zepho at some point. Um, but I just wanted to add that in there. That was like a little funny tidbit.
That's sick.
But I think one of the craziest things in this episode that we see, well, one of the craziest things is that we get to see basically adolescent clones. That we see like Boba Fett, where he kind of is like the young clone, where we see kind of his copy, and then we see kind of like young adult clones, and then we see like adult clones, right? Kind of throughout the show. But like adolescent clones, we don't see, and this was kind of a cool like, holy cow, I didn't realize that they were going to add this into the show where it's just the three of them, right? Just kind of hiding out on this planet after being left by the Empire and left by their other clone brothers. So I want to get what you guys' thoughts on that. Like, I don't know if you guys paid attention to that as much as I did, but I'm like, I don't remember seeing adolescent clones at all.
I thought it was interesting, and it was something that I noticed with Emery in episode one. Is obviously we have the clones who are played in the live action by Tamora Morrison, right? Who plays Jango Fett and later on Boba Fett. Um, and I think it's interesting because for however many seasons, 7 seasons of Clone Wars, right, through Rebels, we've had D. Bradley Baker, who again is the GOAT of voice acting, right? D. Bradley Baker has voiced the clones, and he's done an excellent job. But now it feels like they're leaning so heavily into the Islander, like Australian kind of accent, with Omega, with Emery, and then with the young clones as well, these adolescent clones they run into. It's just kind of funny that like they chose now they're like really leaning into that accent, but then you still have all the clones that are obviously voiced by D. Bradley Baker, and they don't have that like strong accent as well. So I thought it was funny. I appreciate the respect for Tamara Morrison. I think he did an awesome job playing Django, and we won't talk about Book of Boba Fett, but they I thought that was interesting that for some reason they've chose to lean into that a bit more. So
Yeah, I thought it was great. When I thought about it, I thought of one of my favorite episodes of Rebels, season 1, episode 6, Breaking Ranks. But those are cadets; they're not clones. So
Yeah.
mhm.
it's different, obviously. But it's one of the only episodes where Ezra infiltrates an Imperial factory and is in cadet training, right? And so similar, but obviously not the same. I love young Boba in Clone Wars. He's like his episodes are all gas, like they are so good. So um, I don't know. It was fun to see it. But when we get more through the story, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in them, but
Yeah, right. You kind of see them take like this survive at all costs, like don't care about my brother sort of thing. And then um how we have Stacks, Mox, and then the other one. I don't remember the other one's name, but um yeah, they kind of just like they're just bums like throughout the entire time, and I'm like basically through the entire episode. And you're like, wow, like I would expect that you would want to help your brother so you can jump with them and leave, right?
yeah, do you think they're gonna leave you? Like, come on.
Yeah, right. And the fact that, I mean, it makes sense because they thought, yeah, these guys are going to die. Because that brings me to the second part, which I guess like the young clones had a little bit more of an impact on me because I was like, haven't seen this stage of clones yet, right? But the second part of this episode, which I thought was crazy, was that the fact that those slither vines, that kind of like the enemy of the TV show, was a creation by the Empire. And it wasn't just the fauna of the planet. It's like, no, this was an experiment gone wrong. And because of that, like you said, Jake, Hemlock had to jump ship. and because of that, he did an orbital bombardment on the facility and destroyed it. But because of that, because of the growth of the vines and everything, they overgrew and kind of captured the facility for themselves. So I thought that was crazy. Cause I'm like, if the Empire has uh the ability to make these crazy, like have these experiments kind of go haywire like this, like what more damage could they be causing, right? For just because of this cloning facility. So this cloning process that they're doing. So I wanna get your
Mhm.
guys' thoughts on that. What do you think about the Slither vines being Empire tech?
I'll be honest, I felt like the second half of that episode was a level straight out of Halo. I was like, dude, they got the flood in Star Wars now. At first,
That
the
is so true.
vines, the vines, I was like, okay, yeah, like whatever, they're vines, cool. But then when they split off the vines and it had the little like creature looking ones that were like
Yeah,
running at him and jumping at him, I was like, bro, this is straight up flood, and
yeah, dude.
it's like you're straight up in the library now in Star Wars.
Oh,
But I thought it
yeah.
was, I mean, I thought it was a cool scene. The fact that it kind of ends up looking like the Sarlacc in the end, right? I thought was interesting. But again, uh, luckily the young adolescent clones show up at the end to kind of pull Hunter and Wrecker out of the situation they're in. I thought that was good. But yeah, Slithervines it was interesting. It was very again very much Bad Batch of them to be like, hey, we're stealthily infiltrating this place. We're not going to try and poke the bear, but of course they poke the bear, and then they got to kind of improvise and think on their feet. And I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
Classic Bad
overall,
Batch.
I mean, I thought it was cool to see one of the projects the Empire, done. I feel like they're
Mm-hmm.
so hidden, and that's one of my favorite parts about this whole cloning thing. Is it's something that's come to fruition from Clone Wars, right? The Zillo Beast. Hey, we're gonna get into the development of cloning more. It's super under the radar with Chancellor Palpatine, and obviously now we're seeing what he's been working on for this whole time, and it's cool to see other projects that people are working on. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, other than that, there wasn't really much at the end. I mean, there was that cool scene where Hunter's kind of doing the logistics side again, kind of what you were saying, Jake or Jason, where he was talking, kind of going over, trying to make sure that he like planning the coordinates stuff. And Wrecker's talking with these clones, and he's just laughing and having a good time with them, right? And so it's kind of cool to see that even though that they were literally planning to abandon them, they were still able to kind of like build up this camaraderie. So that's basically all I had for this episode. Should we go into ratings?
Yeah, definitely. I can kick us off. Honestly, again, I would group this with the last episode. I don't know if I can necessarily say this one was better or worse. Again, I would have liked to have seen Echo. I would have liked to have seen. I mean, I'm happy to see Rex in every episode. It's not called the Rex Batch. I get that, but I'd probably go ahead and give this one a 7 out of 10 as well. I think it's setting the stage, it's pushing the plot along. There were some fun moments, but it wasn't. Again, I think the show's got a long ways to go, and I'd love to see it. Love to see it build. So
Yeah, I'm going 6.5. I definitely thought the first episode was astronomically better, but I did love the small things. Wrecker having maturity, the goggles, the the stealth mission, like the I didn't like the clones, and I think that's what kind of was like, this is what the cadets are going to be like. Like that kind of drew away from me, apart from the action. But I mean, it all worked out in the end, and I love the whole syndicate thing at the beginning too. I thought that was it really helped. I think that probably carried it a lot for me was the syndicate part because of what Lucas brought up with Darth Maul. I think there's that potential, um, at least hologram potential
Right.
that we could get. So
Yeah. I'm gonna go 7.5. I think I kind of in the same boat. I love seeing the Bad Batch. It was kind of like a classic episode, but the key components were missing, right? Or didn't see all of them together. And I think that's what makes the Bad Batch the Bad Batch. It's not the it's not the Hunter and Wrecker show. Bad Batch, you want to see them all together, or at least as much as we can get them together.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna give this a 7.5, and it definitely like helped space out, like give us kind of like, oh, what's Hunter and Wrecker been doing these last 6 months? Kind of answers that question for us, but it just didn't really push the story along as much as I thought it would. So
Hey, I need to
that,
say this in
yeah,
regards to a comment Jake made in the last episode. Because he said he wished it had more. He wished that the first episode had Bad Batch in it. I'm gonna make the argument that they've both had two members of Bad Batch in them. It's just been two different members in both. So I do feel like this one was more Bad Batchy, but like Omega and Crosshair both being there in the episode and being focal points to me is that there's more than one because of the end of the war. Bad Batch has become so multidimensional instead of just like go on missions, and they showed that aspect of that side that relationship that him and Omega are, she's working on, he's not working on, that side of
Mhm.
their squad. So
catch us in the next episode, episode 3 reaction, and many more to come. So thanks for watching, guys.
all right, guys, we're back for episode 3 of Bad Batch season 3. We've kind of been doing a per episode little series, so make sure to watch the other videos as well. But yeah, this is episode 3, part 2 of Omega's arc. She's trapped in the facility, right? Time's gone by about 6 months now, and still nothing from Hunter and Wrecker, and she's looking pretty beaten down. Obviously nothing compared to Crosshair. Still, I feel like he's still mentally destroyed, physically destroyed, just ready to give up. But there's a big thing that happens in this episode that we've only seen once in all of Bad Batch, and it's actually one of my favorite parts of Bad Batch, season 2, episode 7 and 8, when they decommission the clones, and it's when Emperor Palpatine shows up. Right, he goes to the Senate, and he pretty much staged the entire scenario of the episode in which to show the Senate that clones couldn't bring security to the Empire in the future, and they need to move on from it. And so, what's the big thing that happens in this episode? Emperor Palpatine comes to Tantus to, see how his cloning research is doing. He's obviously having the Empire fund it all, and Hemlock, who we find out we're going to talk about Hemlock in a little bit, but Hemlock, shows him around, and they ultimately look through the facility and stuff. I wanted before we get into the juicy stuff of this episode, because guys, this episode was crazy. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the Emperor, give him his 2 cents before we get into the rest of it. So, what did y'all think about the Emperor, being there and the aura of the episode in that regard?
I honestly, seeing him in the trailer was awesome. I was like, oh my goodness, like Empire's getting involved, right? I'm sounding like a broken record here, but I love just having Force characters come into the show, kind of show it. And the fact that like we don't see him use the Force at all, we just know that he's there, and I could feel it, right? It was like, oh, these guys are nothing compared to Emperor Palpatine right now, right? And it was kind of cool because he was there specifically, like you were saying, Jason, to kind of just take a look at what the progress is and what Hemlock has created. And even just from him getting off the ship, like you could feel his presence almost through the screen. And I thought that was so great. And especially his theme being played kind of subtly with the background music, um, his classic theme, and all of that was just, I was like, oh my goodness, like, all right, let's see I'm excited to see what what Hemlock's going to show him.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Lucas. I think every time Palpatine comes into the show, there's this feeling of seriousness that comes with him, right? I don't know if it's the theme music, I don't know if it's the Praetorian Guards, like the hood, whatever it is, right? But like his presence is known, right? And so I think that they did an excellent job of showing that, kind of giving him the respect that he's earned. Um, and again, the only time that we've seen him in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, in Star Wars Rebels, and now in Bad Batch, he shows up when it's absolutely like necessary for this to get done, right? Other times, he'll send Vader, he'll send an Inquisitor, he'll send someone to clean up the mess, right? But this is like a situation that like like Darth Vader's not even like he can't even send Vader to do this, right? Um, it's that important to the future of the Empire, right? And so I thought that they did an excellent job of conveying that seriousness by having him in the show this early on.
Yeah. So with him being in the show, it starts off quick with Hemlock showing up to Nala Se, who has been in this process of disposing Omega's blood, right? Hiding it from
Yeah.
Hemlock and saying, "Hey, they're gonna test you every day. I'm not gonna show yours because if they catch that your DNA, if your blood goes through this machine, they're gonna find out that you're what they're looking for."
Mm-hmm.
So she constantly is disposing of it. They're keeping their secret for as long as they can. And they actually had a breakthrough without Omega being, found that she was capable of the M count. And so that's why Emperor Palpatine was going to come. And so with this minor breakthrough that actually doesn't help them in any way, Nala Se is slyly telling Omega, take my data pad and escape because Emery's going to be running the test while I'm gone, and there's no way that you're safe at this once they find out. So you got to get out of here. And so that honestly, that starts the music, that starts the thrill, that starts the how the heck is this going to happen? Because slow throughout the episode, right? You see it tick, and it go from the next blood sample to the next blood sample to the next blood sample, and you're like, okay, she's got to get out, right? And so sure enough, typical Omega, right? She can't just leave the facility. She has to go get her boy Crosshair, right? And I'm gonna dive into what happened, and then I want to hear reactions because what she does, she goes in and she tells him that she's getting out with she doesn't tell him any plan, but she sounds confident and she's improvising. And that when he kind of hears that, I think it stemmed in his mind. He's like, look, I'm part of Bad Batch. Like, we live off improvisation. Like, that's all we did. And so I think that's when he was like, all right, let's go Omega. So like, and we'll continue off that. But what did you guys think of that? The breakout, the beginning of the breakout.
I thought it was awesome. I loved again, Crosshair has been so cold to Omega for seasons, right? And probably for months, right? It seems like she goes down there every day and she talks to Crosshair, right? But he's just like the second that she shows up and she's like, I'm getting out today, plans underway, I'm doing this, I need you to distract the guards, and then she leaves, he's like, all right, I'm in, like, so it was fun to see that Crosshair is back, kind of, but what that will look like in the future episodes, we'll see. But it was awesome to see that they finally connect, and like you're saying, when that improv comes out and it's like go time, he's all in. That was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, because you kind of see him at the beginning too, where he's just like, Omega, like I've told you a million times, just leave me, right? Like you get that feeling at the beginning, but then, yeah, kind of like what you're saying, he probably got like a glimpse of what he's been doing with Bad Batch for the entire time that he was enlisted with them. He's like, oh no, she's reminding me of my old teammates, my boys, and so that's when he was like, all right, like I'll go with your plan, I'll distract these guards. And I guess that kind of we didn't even touch on it. Like you see him shake. Like I think that was a crazy part where you kind of like Crosshair isn't that same like bad A sharpshooter. Well, he's reduced in his skill because of like all the testing and everything that he's gone through. And so you kind of see him affected by that throughout the entire episode. But I thought that was an interesting part. But they're able to escape, and I thought I was like, okay, here we go.
Whoa, spoilers.
Well, I mean, escape as in escape the cell.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant.
Well, going off of that, as they're escaping, he's starting to question every choice he made of leaving the cell because he's finding out she has no plan. All she knows is she has to escape, and there's no option of not escaping. And so he eventually going along with her is realizing like it's going to be super lucky and he's just going to have to live with the consequences, which that's Bad Batch to 100%, right? And of course, Omega does actually have a plan, right? Go out where Batcher used to live. And I honestly was like, wow, this is a great plan. Like that's pretty smart. While the Emperor's here, you know, you can sneak out the back door. Well, sure enough, Emery, you know, reads her like a book, goes and can't find her in her cell, so she goes to chase her, and Crosshair, you know, stuns her because, I mean, Omega tries to get Emery to come with them, and she's like, no, because she's a bot, right? And Crosshair, you know, stuns her, but it was too late, and the guards start coming, and they barely make it out of the cell. And it's that point when they're running away, right? When she trips, and Crosshair picks her up, gives her back the data pad. And I think that had such a significant effect on the episode, because he had prior to that, he had told her, if I had the opportunity to escape, I wouldn't even think about finding you. Like, why do you keep coming back to me? Like, I wouldn't even hesitate. I would get out as by myself. And it showed right there that that was a lie, or that he changed his mind. You know, similar to the season 1 finale where she's drowning and he shoots through the water and grabs her, you know, her medical cylinder. So I thought that was awesome, that he starts to trust her. That's the whole banter in season 1 finale, is you let a girl run your show? Like, what the heck? Like, I thought Hunter called the shots, and now he believes in her, and he's, love is a strong word, but like he definitely has the bond with her, and I don't think he chose it. I think she brought it upon him, and he's accepted it. Thoughts on all that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on. And honestly, like, so much of this episode for Crosshair, I think, is a callback to this life that he's known. And I think that in the scenes kind of following the escape, right? I think there's like the thrill of the improvisation, like where he's escaping, right? He's with Omega, but I think Omega's doing things that remind him of the Bad Batch. And that's really shown a little bit further on. Hopefully, I'm not jumping the gun too much, Jason, but when they're kind of mounting this whole escape, and they're talking about, okay, do you remember this plan or this plan, whatever, right? And Omega says, yeah, like Tech made me memorize all the plans. And Crosshair kind of laughs to himself, and he's like, yeah, Tech would do that, you know? And so it just is like, she's bringing back all of these emotions that he's had with his boys, right? And I think that is just, again, right, love is a strong word, but I think it's like Omega is very endearing to him, because I think she has those aspects that have been passed down to her from Hunter and Wrecker and Tech. So it was really cool to watch them escape together. And again, like, it feels like we're starting to see a change of heart with Crosshair.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was super cool, kind of going back a little bit, but when they're escaping through Batcher's like hole, like it's like the hole that his cage, I guess. It was cool because that was something that almost was like alluded to even since the first episode. And I love that, because it was like a build up, right? It was almost like, it wasn't a spur of the moment, like, oh, let's go through the pens. It's like, no, this is something that Omega was like studying, and she's had kind of in the beginning. And I thought that was awesome, because I'm like, okay, we're starting to see kind of like, she's almost taking on like a Hunter type of role, right? Where she is like doing all this improv, but she is so analytical, and she's so like strategic that she's able to kind of think on the fly and able to like get it going, right? But then of course she's still young, she's still learning. When she's having that moment with Crosshair's like, do you know Plan 72? And she goes, oh yeah, I've memorized all of them. So he kind of has to step in and be like, all right, well, you got us this far, let me help, let me take control now, let me do it. And so that part was super cool, and we kind of see kind of that callback where he's shaking, right, because of the experiments that they went on him, and it kind of alter his aim a little bit, but he still is able to take out a bunch of, you know, stormtroopers.
Bro, he murked Delta Squad, bro. Whoever that commando was, bro, he gave him the business. But yeah, they execute Plan 72, and they're able to fly away solely because Hemlock finds out that Omega is she can be M positive, or I think that was the terminology they used. And so he calls it off because he needs her alive. So she escapes with Crosshair, and that's like, I don't know. That is what we've been waiting for a long time. Like, I get that she's only been trapped for like technically 2 episodes, but like mentally with the Crosshair, we've wanted Crosshair back for so long. Like I play Galaxy of Heroes on my phone.
2 seasons.
Bad Batch has been coming out now for so many years, and you still can't play as Crosshair because they haven't announced if he's like a dark side character, a light side character. Is he neutral? Like they have yet to even release him. And so like
Mhm.
I'm just like waiting for this moment where Crosshair like is officially like he's back or it's been decided what he is, you know? And I
Right.
think this is where these next 2 or 3 episodes that we're coming up on, that's where we're gonna get as much of the Bad Batch together as we can, because obviously rip our guy Tech, but Crosshair's back, because they have a fully functioning ship with with all the stuff. So I think they're gonna be back soon. But yeah, super thriller. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I needed this episode. I think this was super big for Star Wars, and I wanted to talk about a few of the smaller things I noticed and wanted to get your opinions on. So first thing, kind of funny, the mouse droid scene. Do you guys remember that? She kicks it
When
out of
she
the
kicks the
elevator.
mouse droid. That was hilarious,
That
bro.
was awesome. That felt like Lego Star Wars, bro. That was awesome.
Oh yeah.
And then the mysterious man from the trailer. We see him at the very beginning of the episode.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
assassin, or so-called assassin.
Yeah, so he's there. Still a lot of confusion there. We don't really know what he's about. But the last thing was Hemlock. I really thought it was interesting him marketing to Emperor Palpatine how great the research facility was. And it didn't make sense to me because I felt like the Emperor had a constant update of what really was happening. That's why he went to visit to see the progress, like the bigger discovery they just had. But at the end, when Emperor Palpatine's leaving, he says, if I was appointed to be the chief science officer for the Empire, there's so much more that I could do. And it just it sounded so selfish. It sounded like he was looking for power. And it just felt like an Imperial move. And he's never felt like an Imperial to me. He never has until that moment when it was like, oh yeah, I'm a scientist, but deep down, I want to be on top. And the science is going to come second. His whole life, it felt like science is first, Empire is second. He serves as emperor. But now it's like, hey, look what I've done. Put me as top dog and let's keep going kind of thing. I felt like that was more of a power thing. And I don't know if you guys picked up on that or you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it, especially what the Emperor says to him, right? It's like, I will, like, you can have whatever you want in order to safeguard the future of the Empire, right? And then he makes a mention to that at the very end, which was very much like Imperial, right? Like when they were about to shoot Omega down, and Emery comes in and like walks in and was just like, no, don't do it because she's like M positive, and he goes, oh, it's just a minor setback, like letting them go. It's like it's a minor setback, but I have the full resources of the Empire at my position, like at my standpoint to get her. And I was like, and that again kind of called back to like feeling Imperial. I was like, that is an Imperial move. Then like, don't worry, I can use the Empire to get her back. And I was like, that to me was like so crazy because I'm like, okay, we're going to see Hemlock get kind of unhinged. He's always been kind of cold and calculated, almost kind of like a Thrawn like 0.5 sort of thing. But now he's starting to kind of like lose it a little bit. He's starting to kind of get unhinged, and it's gonna be exciting to see how far he'll go before whatever happens.
Bro, Vader season 2 Rebels, bro, when he's like on the fall, personally, like squeezing out the Phoenix Squad, bro. That's the vibe I got.
Interesting. One other thing that we haven't talked about yet, that kind of as we've been discussing Hemlock and kind of his own career aspirations and stuff. One thing that I thought was interesting from the episode is obviously we have this whole M count thing. They're trying to find, Omega's M positive, all this, but they actually name drop the project, right? And it's Project Necromancer, right? And I don't know if you guys remember, but it sounded super familiar, so I was researching into that. But they actually talk about Project Necromancer in Mandalorian season 3. So if you guys remember, they have the meeting. They call them the Shadow Council, but Moff Gideon goes in and he's talking to them, and they're all talking about Thrawn's return and how the Empire needs new leadership. And again, Moff Gideon is a big proponent of the whatever this project Necromancer, and that's the whole purpose, that he wants to get the Mandalorians off his back and do all this stuff, right? So again, the tie-in between shows, and obviously the importance that the Emperor puts behind this, and the trust that he gives Hemlock in saying, yo, you've got all of my resources at your disposal for this, because this is literally how we're going to preserve the Empire, was just a super, super cool tie-in. And again, like you're saying, gives so much weight to Hemlock's character, because now it's like, okay, dude, you've got unlimited resources, go crazy. This is just a momentary setback. If you kill Omega, like, you might fail the project, right? You might not be able to find the answer, but if you let her go, it's just delaying the inevitable. The Empire's got the resources. You can track her down, you can capture her, and you can get the job done. So I thought it was a cool tie-in.
That kind of the thought that just came into me, the fact that they're working on Project Necromancer right now, like a few years after Clone Wars, and that it literally lives on until Mandalorian, which is like a decade or two after Return of the Jedi. The fact that there's been like 30 plus years of just this project is in the works is crazy. That goes to show also the Empire, like the Emperor and his like genius, almost like his diabolical intellect.
Well, the rumor is it's all the project for him cloning himself, right? Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. So that's the big rumor. But the only other thing I think I can add is that they bring Batcher with them. I feel like some people might be mad that if we don't mention that, but yeah, Batcher lived. She proved Hemlock wrong, and he lived, and now he's with them. So kind of fun.
Saved him too on multiple accounts.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's cute. She names him Batcher because of the Bad Batch. Like, it's like they're gonna come out with Batcher action figures and Batcher dolls and whatever. Disney's gonna commoditize it, but it was cute. I was happy that Batcher.
Hey, I hope survived. So. I hope so, man. Disney puts no so little money into some of their best assets. Bad Batch doesn't get enough love on their merchandise level. I really hope they do.
Well, I know what I'm getting Jason for Christmas this year. Then getting
a Badger. What are those things called?
Action figure.
A plush toy.
Yeah, plush, dude. I'm gonna get you a Badger plush for Christmas. Incoming.
Well, go for it. What's your ratings for the episode?
You want to kick us off, Lucas?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I'm going to give this an. Oh gosh, I'm going to give this an A.5. It's going to be a little bit more than the first two, because this is like the first time where, I mean, the Emperor made it. The whole like them escaping Crosshair and Crosshair and Omega, kind of conspiring together, right? 8.5, because I'm excited to see where they're going to take this from the future, right? See what the aspirations are with Crosshair and how he's going to assimilate himself back into the Bad Batch, with Hemlock and how he's going to kind of go full bore, throwing Empire's resources out at them, trying to get them back and all that stuff. So 8.5. I wanted to give it that extra 0.5 because it was really cool to see the Empire in there and see kind of his connection with it.
Yeah, I'd go actually the same score, 8.5. I think there were awesome parts of the show. Again, I'm hesitant this early on to give such a high score because I don't know what the rest of the season is like. Obviously, I might come back to this episode later and rate it higher. But yeah, just seeing Omega and Crosshair together, we're finally getting Crosshair back with the Batch, is awesome. And then, yeah, I mean, Omega kicking the mouse droid in the hallway elevator, like definitely seals the 8.5 for me.
Yeah, I'm an 8.5 as well. I re-watched seasons 1 and 2. All the highest episodes of Bad Batch for me are like 8.5, 9. This meets that criteria completely. 8.5. Loved it. So we're excited to see what comes next, and make sure to watch the rest of our videos to keep up with the Bad Batch season 3 and the end of the Star Wars animation era as we know it. So anyways, thanks guys.
Peace.